Oh boy. Why? I hate Voltaic. This should be interesting.
A few days ago, I made a community post expressing my dissatisfaction with the Voltaic benchmarks, citing concerns about their emphasis on score farming and their transformation into a
Ooh.
marketing gimmick. While I stand
Ooh, no offense to Voltaic or anyone part of the Voltaic team, but the Voltaic benchmarks are a waste of time and purely a marketing gimmick. Oh my goodness. I couldn't imagine.
by my opinion, some in the Voltaic community felt it was unfair of me to criticize without delving into specifics or proposing an alternative. So let's clarify my stance.
Ooh. Oh boy. Understanding the VT benches.
In essence, the Voltaic benchmarks rank individuals based on their ability to achieve specific scores in various categories,
Right.
such as static and dynamic scenarios, but of course this applies to everything. Your highest score determines your rank, a relatively straightforward concept.
Right. Score farming.
The
Ooh.
concern I hold with the Voltaic benchmarks lies in the functioning of the scoring system within Kovacs. The problem arises from the possibility of attaining higher scores without genuine improvement.
Ooh. That is interesting. So that's an interesting concept. How I mean I'm pretty okay. I'm not against criticizing anybody for whatever reason. So I mean, likewise, I'm always interested in having a conversation about if somebody doesn't like a bench or something. I'm not like a VT shiller or anything, but the whole genuine improvement versus you got lucky. That I think that's a good question because that is like trying to answer that question is only going to try to help all the aim trainers, like in all the aim groups, VT, was it RA, UV, what else? I know I'm missing some. Yuki, like all the aim groups, they all got their little benches and whatever. In general, they're all pretty much the same, but there will be specific little different nuances between them. And I mean, that is a valid concern. The whole concept of grinding a scenario and then boom, you hit that one peak score because of whatever reason. You were just in the flow state the entire time. You didn't mess up, or maybe you just got lucky and you hit some lucky RNG. And then maybe if you go to do it again, maybe your score would maybe go back down, but maybe it would be like a little higher than your old averages. I mean, that's a good question.
A practice commonly known as farming a scenario. Given that this method often results in faster rank progression, it becomes a prevalent trend. As more
Okay, so I do think there are a bunch of different ways to progress your rank. All right, I think one of the most popular ones is VDIM, and that's Voltaic Daily Improvement Method, where you let me mid. So like let's say Monday you do a bunch of dynamic stuff, and this is just as an example. You're like a Tuesday you do all your static stuff. The next day you do like some precise tracking, and then you dedicate a day, more or less about an hour or two for each category, and then you just rinse and repeat. I think that is probably the most widely well, not really accepted, but like like most widely practiced form of aim training, because everybody can argue like which way is the best way, and the whole score farming thing comes from, I think, if you want to get like a good score, you're gonna have to grind like one scenario over and over and over again. All right, you can't really get around that as much as you change your FOV, as much as you change your sense. Yes, it might be a little bit easier here and there, but at the end of the day, you still have to get that score. But no, that's I mean that's a fine criticism to have, the score farming thing.
Individuals engage in this practice, it becomes a domino effect. Consequently, the original purpose of the benchmarks, which was to assess and enhance aiming skills,
Yeah.
erodes. It transforms into a pursuit of achieving the highest score possible
Okay.
rather than fostering genuine improvement.
Okay, and this is another point of contention, I guess. And I'm not sure if you're alluding to this. So it's like the two forms of aim training, or there's multiple forms, but like one of the main ones is, do you stick with one sense for every scenario, and that's going to be like your sensitivity, or do you have a range? And then you could obviously break that down. Do you got like a little tiny range, or do you got like a big range? I think that's a valid argument on what the way of the true aim is, but there's no real way to measure, or there's no real way to like really gatekeep a score depending on what sensitivity somebody uses or how they got that score. All right, it's kind of hard to do that, I think, in sports. So if you look at sports, and let's say you got like two football teams. Well, one football team, how they get a touchdown is going to be different than how the other team gets a touchdown. Specifically, play by play, so on and so forth. Maybe one team has a really good quarterback and they they get a lot of like passing yards. Maybe the other team has a good running back and they get their touchdown from like having a strong running back and a lot of rushing yards. At the end of the day, you still get that 6 points from the touchdown. How you got it, nobody really cares. So in that regard, it doesn't really matter. You have either the one sensitivity, because if you're trying to get a score, like, I can't tell the difference between an Astra score of PASU on 20 cm versus, I don't know, 40 cm, or maybe it's even more, like 45 or 50, 55, whatever. All right. The only thing that matters is they got that score. And I would imagine to some degree, you have to somehow get better, either moving your arm quicker or being more precise, or maybe you predict the targets better. It's just hard to believe for me that someone could not improve by getting a better score. Granted, just because you got like a really high score does not mean that you perform at that rank at all times. I don't think that's really how it works. I mean, you said it yourself. The ranks are, what do you call it? Determined by the highest rank you got. Not like, maybe you know how you have a peak and a valley. Maybe a better way to maybe assess for, I don't know, aim would be like figure out how to track an average, but I don't think any of the aim trainers are doing that really. But let's just keep going.
While it might initially seem that a higher score correlates with better aim, the reality is different. Allow me to elaborate on some of the ways people engage in score farming to showcase their scores, boost their VT rank, and indulge in other unconventional practices.
Reset Andes.
These individuals are the ones who incessantly mash the reset button until they secure the best spawns. While this practice provides a consistent starting point, it's generally acceptable if everyone adheres to it, ensuring an even playing field. However, the problem arises when you realize not everyone adopts this approach, and those who do take it to an extreme. They'll continue resetting until they achieve perfect spawns, subsequently eliminating bots and repeating the process if they don't encounter favourable spawns again. Although this may seem inconsequential as it pertains solely to Kovac scores, the real issues emerge when individuals begin showcasing their VT scores.
Oh, I mean, okay. So there's multiple things going on here. There's like two things. You got the reset Andy thing and the montage of the highest ranks you got. So I get it. Um, so okay, I don't know why I'm going back to that. If you're trying to get a score, you still have to put some amount of significant time in to get that score. So like let's say like in the beginning I sucked ass at Pasu. I had to put about, I don't know, maybe 200 to 300 plus hours in, because I'm a slow learner, into Pasu just to understand the patterns, to understand where I probably should put my crosshair versus where I should not put my crosshair. Only go there if you think you're doing like really good. Like you want to try to avoid the edges, you want to try to avoid the top and the bottom, you want to try to stay somewhere in the middle, but if you have to go there, you go there. You have to put some amount of time in just to understand the pattern of each scenario. So the whole concept of the reset thing, when you grind a lot of the same scenario, you can almost feel when you're doing good, and you can feel when you're about to choke a score. And it's up to that individual person on whether or not they just want to continue with their run. I think this is something that's more prevalent in the higher ranks because they have a better sense of what they need to accomplish. I don't know if it's much of a thing in like the lower ranks. Like, are a lot of these people these people are a lot of these people becoming reset Andes? Because I don't think these people, like the bronze, silver, gold, platinum, diamond people, should be resetting a lot. They would gain way more consistent I don't know, like mind muscle connection and so on and so forth from just playing the scenario out and learning how to deal with their nerves whenever they feel like a PR coming on, because that's a thing. Whenever you start to sense that you're doing good and whatnot, there is that is a factor of like, oh my god, I'm doing good, and then all of a sudden your hand starts shaking, and then you're like, oh dang it, I flubbed a score or whatever. So I do understand the whole reset Andy thing and being against it. It's just I don't know how you would deal with it. Like, if someone doesn't want to continue their run, I mean, runs are only a minute. Why would you punish that person for just hitting a reset button? It's like, okay, I have to sit here and wait. Let's say I was doing good up to 30 seconds. You would want that person, and then they just like fucked it up in the middle somewhere. You would want that person to just waste another 30 seconds. Now, granted, 30 seconds isn't anything, but if you're grinding like 9 hours on any one scenario to try to get like a tippy top score, well, then all of a sudden that 30 seconds piles up. It's every time you do a scenario and you like choke it somewhere in the center. So the whole concept of the reset thing, I mean, I get it. And then the whole montage thing of showcasing your best scores only. I mean, that's just like honestly, that's like a marketing thing, and that's in every industry though. Like sports montages, they only, like, what's it on like a sports center? They show like the top, what's it called? Like the top 10. And then what's the other side that they made, like the bottom 10 or something, where it's like the best plays in sports this week or the top 10 plays or whatever. That's across every industry. So why wouldn't it be in like the Aimbro industry? Granted, I do get what you're talking about when someone puts up like a YouTube video of, oh, I got a PGTI of Nova Astra, whatever. And it's like, oh, they must aim like that all the time. It's like, no, actually, for that person to get that type of score, they probably had to grind that scenario hundreds, if not thousands of times and took many hours just to get that score. That's the part that nobody sees. But it's not like anybody is out here posting a video and also stating that, hey guys, it took me, like 90 hours to get this like Nova score or whatever. I don't know. That's just not really like a selling point. It's, you just put the video up and then some people will ask you, oh, what's your CM? What's your FOV? What's your theme? Blah, 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 blah. You know, all the usual things. But I mean, I get those 2 points. But I'd say they're valid. But I mean, I'm open to the conversation still.
There are essentially two types of VT benchmarks players: those who approach scenarios with the genuine intent to address weakness and improve overall aim, and those who optimize scenarios for the sake of achieving the highest scores.
Okay. Well, it's kind of hard to separate the two. The genuine improvement versus you just got the better score? How do you not improve? Like, if you get a better score, how did you not improve? Granted, yes, you can get lucky, but in order to take advantage of the lucky spawns, you have to have some level of skill to begin with. Either it's like pattern reading or precision and speed in that form. But then how would you categorize genuine improvement? I think you're already genuinely improving, but instead of tracking the peaks in your score, track your averages or your valleys. I think if you track your valleys in your scoring, that's a better measurement of your aiming. But it just so happens none of the aim trainers really, that's not how all the benches work. They don't track your valleys and be like, okay, you're averaging, or even on a shitty day, you're doing about as good as a grandmaster. Ooh, like none of the aim trainers work like that. But I think honestly, in both scenarios, both players are improving. It's just to what degree they are improving is, I guess, the point of contention.
The latter group attains high scores, resulting in elevated VT ranks, which they then flaunt. Given the higher ranked VT players are often admired, a ripple effect occurs where others emulate their practices. Unfortunately, many fail to distinguish between genuine training and score farming.
Oh, that is a good point. Actually training versus score farming, I don't know if that's a real thing. I mean, or maybe I just haven't gotten to that level yet. I mean, I'm still over here riding the struggle bus too, just like anybody else aim training. But I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. It's not like that doesn't happen, would it? I mean, the whole reason, well, one reason that people do VT benches is so they can like, videotape all their scores or take a little screenshot and, they submit them on the VT Discord and then they get their rank and all that jazz. And I think that's fine. There are worse things in the world than like trying to cheese a scenario. Okay. Like, I don't think anybody has gotten like a high ass VT rank and actually cheated their way up there. Okay, so there are worse things, but I mean, I kind of get what you're talking about.
This emulation phenomenon undermines the original purpose of the VT benchmarks, designed for players to run scenarios, assess their skill levels, and subsequently engage in proper training to retest themselves later. The benchmarks lose their intended meaning due to the prevalence of score farming, diluting the essence of skill improvement and control refinement.
That I mean, again, it's a valid criticism, but I would still say any type of like valid criticism is only going to serve to help the aim training community, because like, aim training is still pretty new, and trying to convince pro level like gamers to engage in aim training is hard enough to begin with. So I mean, you're not wrong, but I don't know. I don't know how I would tackle that. That is a good question. Score optimizers.
While score farming and score optimizing might sound
Yeah, they
similar,
sound the
they
same.
differ significantly. As mentioned earlier, score farming involves repeatedly running a scenario, resetting frequently to secure optimal spawns, providing more opportunities to achieve a higher score without genuine improvement. Score optimizing, on the other hand, is about playing a scenario in the most efficient way for achieving a high score.
Okay.
While there is some overlap, such as the practices of reset Andes, they differ in a crucial aspect. Score farming allows you to still play the scenario correctly and genuinely focus on improving weaknesses to some extent. However, score optimizing goes further, involving the intentional neglect of the correct way to play the scenario in favor of the easiest approach.
Oh, okay. So that's a good criticism. All right. Because in the beginning, when I first discovered the VT benches, you know, when I when I first discovered the VT benches and I tried to figure out how to play some of them, I was so flabbergasted and had no idea how to play some of these. I hated passive. I hated all this dynamic shit. I hated tracking. I still hate reactive tracking. Okay? There is no little paragraph. Like I honestly wish a lot of these aim trainers would have like a little paragraph or something to tell you how you should engage with the scenario. Um just period. I mean, because there is like a little blurb, like a sentence or two, but it's like it's the most basic bitch way to tell you how to do it. It's like for passive, it's like click the moving dots. It's so on and so forth. I forgot what exactly it says, but it's something that kind of helps, but doesn't really like do anything. Um, I think a really good guide for passive is like Maddie's guide, but that's a whole like was it like 20-minute video or something like that? What would be a good way to come up with a couple bullet points to take from that video and to just implement them in a nice little neat way in either Kovacs or AimLab or whatever. Yeah, that would probably be my thing to try to figure out how to. I mean, because you look at the UIs for all the aim trainers, and they're already so like riddled with like menus and squares and numbers and lists and scores everywhere. It's like, what do I click on? Where do I start? Okay, it's like engaging in an aim trainer is kind of daunting at first. But yeah, that is another valid criticism.
This might include actions like planting your crosshair in front of moving targets and waiting.
Okay, the planting your crosshair in front of targets and waiting. Okay, how many times have you seen a Counter-Strike video or a Valorant video where they always say crosshair placement, crosshair placement, crosshair placement. Your crosshair placement was bad right here. Your crosshair placement was bad right there. So on and so forth. In the top levels of just shooting, like gaming shooting, they always try to tell you predict rather than react. That's always what you hear. And even a lot of top scores in aim trainers, there's going to be some level of predicting and some level, like a percentage of, like a pie, if like there's going to be some level of like prediction of like where you moved your reticle on a dot versus how much of it did you actually react to. Yeah, I mean, this whole you shouldn't be predicting. I mean, that's fine when you're trying to like learn the scenario, but like when you got like a decent grasp on a scenario and you're trying to push the speed and the precision, then I don't think there would be a way to have that pie be 100% reaction and zero prediction. I just don't think that's possible. I mean, maybe I could be wrong.
Avoiding snapping or flicking in dynamic scenarios, and instead floating your crosshair around, or deliberately edge tracking to enhance reaction time. Some even go as far as playing on 140 FOV on every target switching scenario, and employing various other practices that I strongly disagree with.
Oh, the edge tracking. And I did not know people put their FOV all the way up to like 140. That seems like super cheese. Dang, I'm gonna have to try that later. I'm just kidding, but mm, that I mean that is a valid criticism again. But again, it's as long as the person got the score, they got it. However, they did in whatever way. You could argue you cheese the scenario by your sensitivity is too low, your FOV is too wide, or you use a specific technique, and so on and so forth. You got lucky RNG. There are so many ways to gatekeep a score, and I don't know if there's a way to, I don't know, maybe prevent that. Maybe if let's say if like a bench comes out or something, like a scenario, just have a set what do you call it? Like a set sensitive, like would that be a good scenario that you would want to play and engage with? Boot up whatever scenario. Like let's say this whole list is like the same, but this, like let's say, let's just use Pasu. The Pasu is going to be at let's say Overwatch 103 FOV. It's going to have like gray squares in the background. The targets are going to be black, and you're going to have like a little tiny cross as a reticle, and you have to play this at 30 cm, and there is no changing it. My question would be, would that be a good scenario? And would that be good, like a good way to play this and advise the masses of people, this is how you should play this? I mean, that is a good question.
While it's essential to acknowledge that individuals have purchased the game and can play it as they please, the consequences of these practices matter.
Right.
Why do I care? Because individuals genuinely passionate about improving their aim may look up to those with high scores in VT ranks, assuming they possess exceptional skill, a belief that in large majority of cases isn't accurate. This creates a misleading image for new and inexperienced aimers.
So looking up to all the people with the letters in front of their name and, I don't know, maybe observing their gameplay and then realizing, oh, they suck ass. I don't know how accurate that is. Maybe to some degree it is, but to another degree it's not. I don't know. And I would imagine the amount of people doing that is far lower than what you would think.
Leading them to believe that what they witness is correct, when in many instances it isn't.
Fraudulent practices. Ooh.
I won't mention specific names, but if you're observant, you may identify the individuals I'm referring to. However, the purpose is not to encourage negativity towards them. This video is not about bashing anyone, but aims to illustrate the issues I find concerning. Many higher ranked VT members share their scores, sometimes achieved through score farming or optimization.
Right.
Observers may perceive these scores and think this person has exceptional aim. However, upon closer inspection, their actual in-game performance may tell a very different story.
That's fair. Oh my gosh, I don't know who the fuck this is. There's like so much blacked out shit. Jesus. And Apex no less. Okay. So, I mean, I get what you're doing. It's like, yes, the person comboed all the bullets, but upon closer inspection, it was like kind of shaky and so on and so forth. And I get it. I don't know. This kind of seems like a weird call out. Like you're calling someone out, but you're not calling someone out with all the like blacked out squares or whatever. I have no idea who the fuck this is. But I mean, at the end of the day, that person, killed that other dude. uh, okay, got another kill. You know, they couldn't, finish it off in the beginning, and they look down and they kill the person still. I mean, I get it. Okay. I mean, in that one, that was like a very just shaky thing. But honestly, if you were to put that level of scrutiny to any other sport, I think you would find similar things. If you, let's say we go to the NFL, we took all the best like the what do you call it? Like the number one like quarterbacks for the entire league, all right? And then we sat them in a room, and then we were somehow able to show footage of like certain quarterbacks throws and what they look like, but they had like a little cam on their helmet to show like the speed, the precision, the reaction time. I'm sure that all the quarterbacks would be able to break down what that person did right and wrong very easily. The same thing you could do the same thing in golf. Like if you got a bunch of high level golfers in the same room, and you ask them to break down, oh, look at this guy's drive, let's break this down, all the mechanics and so on and so forth, then upon closer inspection they could probably nitpick, which is very valid. I think the whole goal of aim training is to just improve, and we're just simply arguing semantics of how much you're improving. Like, are you improving by like plus one, or would a better way to improve be like plus two, plus two, plus two, in that regard? So, but I mean, again, I get what you're talking about, but I don't know.
This example is not intended to flame the creator, but it serves to highlight the significant disparity between their high scores in Kovacs and their average in-game aim.
Mhm.
People often look at these players for guidance on improving, believing them to be genuinely skilled.
Okay, it's kind of, to me, this is kind of obvious, like who this is, but I'll just let it go. Okay, so you compared like the VT person's aim to the unknown aimer of that's a high skill level. Okay, I mean, I get it, but there's also other factors like that come into play, like like the game time that each person was, has under their belt, and I don't know. Maybe I'm like defending like one side and not so much the other, but I mean it is like a decent criticism, but honestly, I don't know. It kind of just feels like an attack on like one side and not the other.
On the other hand, genuinely skilled, consistently practiced aimers may go unnoticed. They avoid score farming / optimization and instead concentrate on proper training with the aim of achieving the best possible skill level instead of the best possible score. Some may argue that these clips are cherry picked, which is a reasonable assumption.
Yeah.
To protect the identities of these players, I'm unfortunately not willing to provide additional videos to their average play. However, if you do identify them, I encourage you to examine their averages, compare them to their Kovac scores, and recognize the potentially misleading nature of some of these players' skills.
I mean, you're not wrong, but I don't know. Maybe this is like too high level for me. um, Having like a VT member with that looks like they're having like shaky aim versus like some no name person that has like really smooth aim, and comparing the two. I don't know. Yeah, you already mentioned like that could have been cherry picked or whatever, but you want to compare like the averages and so on and so forth. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can't really defend anybody or be for anybody in this one.
I want to emphasize that this video was not intended as an attack,
Oh yeah.
defamation, or an attempt to initiate a witch hunt against Voltaic. I used to genuinely love Voltaic, and I still appreciate it for providing valuable resources to aspiring gamers.
Oh yeah. I think my aim now is way better for, grinding the benches and so on and so forth. And than what it was initially when I first got my computer and started PC gaming. And I still thought I was like hot shit playing Modern Warfare 2019 on like 60 CM, like whipping my arm around, having like high blood pressure at every match or whatever. Um, yeah, and I mean, aim training is still new. Probably best practices are still not yet known. But I mean, it's conversations like this that hope to drive that, in a better direction, which is fine.
My admiration is for the concept of Voltaic. However, my concerns lie with certain aspects of the community and its members. If you find joy in using the Voltaic benchmarks, score farming, and engaging in practices I disagree with, that's your choice.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, the supposed beef that some claim exists between me and Voltaic is meaningless. Everyone is free to pursue their preferences, and I'm free to express criticism. My intention is not to spread negativity, but to voice my disagreement with certain practices. Sending nothing but love to everyone in, around, or part of Voltaic. I'm sure each person there is genuinely lovely, but as with any community, differing opinions exist. I appreciate the community and what it offers, even though I may not align with all of its practices. All the best. I'll see you guys later.
Yeah. No, I thought this video was fine. I mean, it's 100% okay to like criticize like the aim groups for practices and what's best practices, what's bad practices, and so on and so forth. I mean, at the end of the day, this is all just video games. Yeah, some people can like make a living at it because of it, but that's like very far and few between, to be honest. Much the same way with any other hobby, really. But no, that like all the criticisms were fine and just. I don't know. I think these were good criticisms, and hopefully, maybe they'll figure it out in the next season. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, I thought it was a good video. It was fine. But yeah. I'll catch you guys on the next one, all right? Later.